What a week we had this week in sport, from Tom Brady's seventh Super Bowl title to more drama in the Premier League and the FA Cup, along with the first week of the Six Nations. And what a strange one it was as well. Hi, Liam.
Fair enough.
So, Liam, I suppose it's probably we should talk about the howler that Ireland had in their first round of the Six Nations in Cardiff away against Wales. Do you want to just start us off with that one?
Yeah, I think I guess to start you have to look at where it went wrong, really, for Ireland. There's no doubt that Wales are a good team, but Ireland, as much as they've been trying to find form under new boss Andy Farrell, um, the last time they played this Welsh team, they ran out 30 points against them. You know, I think the scoreline was something that wasn't expected. Like I said, the last time that they played them, Ireland won 32-9 was the score. And, you compare that to the scoreline on Sunday and 21-16, it's a big jump up. Um, so obviously you have to look at where it went wrong. And there was a couple of things really. And I think the main one that obviously everyone's quite aware of by now is Peter O'Mahony's silly red card in the 13th minute for a high challenge in ruck.
Silly but
Uh,
fair. And I mean, like when you do look at it, I didn't think there was much in it at first glance, but when they showed the replays, you went from, maybe a yellow to, oh, definitely a red because it's high. And I think, I really do feel for Peter O'Mahony because, he's such a capable player, and all he's doing is, really trying to lay down a marker in the Six Nations. I was just so disappointed for him because I'm just imagining myself, he's there in the dressing room, beforehand, everyone, it's your day now, Peter, just geeing him up, and he's just trying to lay down a marker, and it's just gone horribly wrong for him.
yeah, and sure, look, he's been banned for a month. This could really genuinely be the end of his international career. Because he's not going to be unbanned until the game in Dublin against England, and it's going to be quite difficult for Andy Farrell to consider even picking him for that game if he hasn't played in a month, let alone the fact he got a red card. It is it's not a great look for, I guess, an experienced international like him. But at the same time, I really don't think he did that intentionally. It reminds me a bit of myself as a player, really. I think every player just kind of has those moments, those heat of passion moments, really. And it's been a couple of months since he played international rugby, October, and their final match in that postponed Six Nations, wasn't really a way that any of the Irish players wanted to end the tournament. They've probably come into this tournament looking for an answer, and I really do think he was trying his best to be that answer. But I just think he slightly overdid it, and I'm not pinning everything on O'Mahony, of course, because a lot of things went wrong even after that. Anyway, some of the statistics, for example, Ireland, while they had less lineouts, still managed to lose, I think, the same amount as Wales, or only one less than Wales. And fair enough, they did steal some as well. You cannot discredit them for that. I think people like Tyke Byrne were great in
Yeah,
the lineout.
actually, I was sorry to interrupt, but I just did want to quickly get your thoughts on Tygburn. He's been brought into this team as a second row. He might not have the physicality that Ian Henderson brings to the game, but I mean he's just such a talent, and I mean when you see him play on top form, he's so skilled. He's got great quick feet, and he's a great passer of the ball. And I mean, like you look at him, and I mean he brings a different sort of a flavour to this Ireland side. What did you think of his performance against Wales?
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, I thought he was the man of the match for Ireland anyway, if they were going to have one. Watching him for months of the season, he's been amazing. He leads some of the stats, including carries made. Is one of them rucks hit is another stat he's leading. I definitely feel like Munster got an absolute bargain when they managed to get him back from Scarlets. Because he was immense for them as well. He's really kind of been finding his feet with the Munster team, and he's been doing great for them. And now he's coming to this Ireland team, which he rightly deserved, and he's been doing the exact same for them. There's no question about him as a player, and I do genuinely think Warren Gatland will be scratching his head after watching him play, even if they've lost, and he'll definitely say to himself, this guy is something special. He's knocking on the door for a Lions jersey this year if the tournament goes ahead, and I don't blame Warren Gatland if he's thinking that, because by all rights, I do think Tadhg would deserve that jersey. I think he's been performing better than even James Ryan, in my opinion. James Ryan, he's an amazing player, but he's kind of had his ups and downs the last couple of months, especially with injury. He got injured again against Wales, obviously, and we won't know if he's going to be playing against France because they need to do the return to play protocols. But I fully could expect Tadhg to step up for this French game. I do hope to see him starting, because he really does deserve it. He's been immense, like I said, this season for Munster, and when he's been called up by Ireland, which rightly so, he's been immense for them as well. There's no doubting what he can do. He's a great player. He's got so many different aspects to his game. His rocks, his line-out steals, his line-out catches. I don't think he missed a single one of the balls that were thrown at him, actually. And it's the same with the Pro 14, really. He's an exceptional player.
I do think, obviously in the back row with Caelan Doris being injured, Stander reverts to a number 8. I thought he played very well. I mean, he's one of these guys that is just so powerful, and I mean he's such a good runner. And the killing thing about it is that I suppose everyone, in hindsight, I thought Ireland actually played pretty well, all things considered, because rugby is a game that you can't play with a man down. And I just think,
yeah,
they really did show their capabilities. And if only Peter O'Mahony hadn't gotten sent off, we would have, I think we would have won by a considerable scoreline. And it's just it is a tough one, especially I with the sub Billy Burns coming on. I just want to. We'll just discuss him quickly. I mean, he's had a blunder at the end, and I mean, what are your thoughts on him?
I mean, I'm going to defend him, but at the same time, I'm going to point out some, I think, very fair criticism. Not attacking the player directly, because I wouldn't do that. I'm never going to slate a player for their performance, because it doesn't come down to one man losing. But to be fair to him, in the Autumn Nations Cup, when he kind of first got his chances, I thought he looked pretty good, especially against England in the Autumn Nations. He was the only player that really brought any flair to that game. He was responsible for the only try that Ireland scored. But as an international player, you need to be able to cope with pressure. That is how players such as Johnny Sexton and Peter O'Mahony, etc., are still playing where they are now. Because I mean, Sexton as a number 10 has all the responsibility of that Irish team. A lot of the plays come down to him. And I mean, take for example the French game in 2018, that 60-metre drop goal. The pressure that Sexton was under to hit that was immeasurable. So for Billy Burns, you can look, he's new enough to the Irish team, and Ireland losing didn't just come down to him, and they should not have left it till that late to go win the game. Not only that, they had 14 players, and the majority of the players that day looked pretty unfit, if you ask me, and there was no real desire from anyone really, bar one or two.
I can understand where you're coming from, but really, playing with 14 men is a lot harder, I mean, you have to consider that as well.
I mean, that's what I was saying. I don't want to go at him directly, but at the same time, and here's the criticism, as a number 10, which he is, and he's been playing there for quite a while for Gloucester Rugby, England Under-20s, and Ulster. He's actually quite experienced enough playing with some form of international and a lot of club rugby against some of the top teams in Europe. You should not be missing kicks like that. And like I said, fair enough if you feel the pressure, but the point of a number 10 is you need to numb out that pressure, because you're carrying the team. A lot of the moves of a team depend on their number 10. And if you can't hit those kicks, that's a serious problem.
Well,
and maybe it was just a once off.
Yeah, that's very interesting that you say that, because I mean, he's 8 meters in from touch. and I think he's something like 25 yards out, and he's just, I think, from what I've heard. Now this is just going on what I've heard. He hasn't actually tried to go right slap bang into the 5 meter line. I think he's actually gone for a sort of a regular kick, but I think the technique just wasn't there on the day for him. But I mean, this is a broken Wales team. Not so much broken, but very. It's what's the word I'm looking for? I suppose this Wales team isn't really all there. With George North playing at the centre. And when was the
A
last
bit
time we've seen
dismantled.
that? Yeah, it's exactly. It's very dismantled. I'm like, you've some big names there, but I mean, it's just I really think that Ireland should have gone for it there at the end. But look, we've got the point, and I suppose we have to accept that these things happen. In other news, Scotland and England, and Stuart Hogg has proved to everyone that he is, he's no longer bigging up Scotland for their Six Nations hopes with nothing to back it up, and they have backed it up and surprised
Oh,
England.
yeah.
It was amazing. I couldn't believe it when I was watching them, but a big performance from Scotland, and you just hope that they wouldn't kind of fumble the bag now.
Yeah, I mean, the only team that I'm hoping they fumble it against really is Ireland, obviously, as an Irish player. Um, no, look, fair play to Scotland, honestly, all respect towards Stu. I thought the team was great. Jamie Ritchie, the new debuted Cameron Redpath, his father played for Scotland. I thought he was pretty good as well. Stuart Hogg had a blinder of a game. His kicks were very impressive, bar his shots a goal, but, as a fullback, I don't think your shots a goal need to be a very big priority. A lot of people were talking about a couple of months ago, he's a big contender for the Lions jersey. And I mean, games like this really did prove why people would say something like that. I mean, you're playing England at Twickenham, a stadium that none of the players in your team have ever won at. And not even that, it's a team that no Scottish player has, a stadium that no Scottish player has won at since 1983, almost 40 years ago. So to go there as your team's captain and I guess really charge down for that victory as the leader of that team. It's impressive from him. And I've heard some things about if there had been English fans there, if there had been Scottish, I guess stuff like that. But I don't really think that would have made a difference, to be honest. I think Scotland have a lot of hunger after their results last year, and I think that really began after that victory over France. If anything, I think that's really kind of riled them up, and it's making them have this confidence that they've been lacking for so long under Gregor Townsend. And he's going to be happy to see it as well from his players. It's something that he's probably been looking for a long time. But no, honestly, Stuart Hogg, I thought, I think without him, I don't think they would have won really, because I felt Finn Russell had quite an off day. His kicks didn't really match his character, and he didn't quite live up to where he placed in European Player of the Year last year. But, players do have off days, like O'Mahony and Billy Burns. So, Hogg had a blinder, really, same with the whole team, like I said. And I do think the scoreline flatters England a lot. I think Scotland really could have and should have scored more points, and they missed 8 points off the boot as well. It's 8 points missed. It could have been 19-6. It could have been even more than that if they had executed their try chances, which they didn't. But, had they done that, that would have really reflected the match, because, like I said, I don't think 11-6 really reflects on it too well. And I think England were very sloppy. A lot of it comes into just the sloppiness of England. I think players looked tired. Players didn't look motivated. I think Eddie Jones kind of underprepared them. I think a lot of it was arrogance, really.
Well, yeah, and that's a very good point, because a lot of these, I mean, they're so used to winning, and as you said there, it's nearly 40 years since Scotland have came and won at Twickenham. A very strange season, obviously without the fans. But I mean, this Scotland team have come here and said, I'm going to have a go at this one. And England, I mean, they didn't register a try. I mean, when's the last time that happened at Twickenham? I mean, these are things that you have to consider. Like, this is an aging England team, and Eddie Jones is going to have to find he's going to have to find some way of to G these players up again and to find a second win, because they could finish anywhere in this Six Nations. Obviously, I suppose the five other nations will be hoping this, really, because they are the team to beat. I mean, there's no questioning that they are a very talented side with a lot of bulk and a lot of pace, and they're a very physical side. But I mean, Scotland came and said they're going to have a go, and I suppose, as you said there, that man Stuart Hogg, he's had an absolute blinder, and his runs, I noticed that his runs are a lot more direct and a lot less sort of a lot less lateral than they were before, and he's really he's turning into a proper world class player. In other news, I suppose it is inevitable that we have to talk about the Manchester City and Liverpool game, 4-1 at Anfield, and this Liverpool team are starting to crack.
Yeah, look, I was I wasn't surprised when I heard Man City had won, but when I looked at the scoreline, I didn't expect Liverpool to lose by 3 goals. I thought, I watched the highlights of the game after, and they looked in disarray, really. I don't quite know what's going on with that Liverpool team. Fair enough, the same argument is being brought up quite a lot. Injuries, fixture cramping. I mean, there is some valid arguments, but at the same time, these are the reigning Premier League champions who won the league by 18 points last season, There's no reason that they should be performing the way they are. I mean, they're barely sitting on 4th place. West Ham are creeping up behind them. Everton are creeping up behind them. And they're, slowly losing out on the top spot. They're slowly falling further and further down the league table. And, I guess I can't really say that it's been quite a normal season. There's been teams dropping points that you wouldn't have expected against strange teams, really, to be dropping points against. Like, for Liverpool standards, dropping points against Aston Villa 7-2. I mean, Brighton, Southampton, these are all teams that they beat comfortably last season. And, it's suddenly like this has just changed, and you kind of start to wonder why. I do feel like that these Liverpool players don't have as much motivation to go out and perform, and that's because of the fact they won the league last season. I mean, the only new real additions to that team were, obviously, over the summer, Thiago Alcantara, who's been injured for the most part of the season, and they've only gone and bought 2 players because of an injury crisis. I mean, a lot of those players are quite young, so, I guess you would have expected their drive for another title to be up, but it's not there, really.
I just think that's a very interesting point you made there about a lack of motivation, maybe. So, do you agree with Roy Keane's statement? They have been bad champions. I thought it was. I was sort of taken aback, I suppose, when I heard this, because it's a strange thing to say. I mean, I suppose, how would you define it and whatnot? But I mean, do you think they have been in a sense bad champions?
I wouldn't fully agree with that, and I say that because even amidst the injury crisis, they were first place for the most part of the first half of the season up until the start of January, and that's when things started to really go downhill. I mean, to say they're bad champions, I don't think is necessarily untrue, but I don't think it's true at the same time. I think I guess their attitude has been bad, but
does that attitude, I don't quite. Do you think that attitude comes from the manager? I've just briefly seen. I don't know if you heard, but he was being interviewed by a journalist. Okay, and he so the journalist goes to him. He says something along the lines of, "All right, Jurgen Klopp, do you think that Liverpool are still in the title charge, or are Man City too far gone, or is now top 4 the priority, and is that now the challenge?" And Jurgen Klopp sort of backlashes out at him. He's like, it's a stupid question. You've wasted your 2 questions. of course I will answer, but these are two very stupid questions. And you're just kind of thinking, God. Like, I mean, this guy, obviously, okay, I didn't know, the sad passing of his mother yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, that's tough to be going through, especially, and I can't imagine what it's like to be in his position, but it's not the first time. And I mean, if you're the manager of Liverpool Football Club, you can't be coming out with this stuff. I just heard, like, after the game, and this, honestly, it put a smile on my face. Alisson, I think he might have had cold feet. I mean, who says that? Like, you can't do that. Like, you can't be saying these things. I mean, where did the excuses end? It's kind of like, he's talking about Man City's COVID break. They've missed 2 or 3 training sessions. Like, what's that about? You need to be able to, to be able to move on from these things. And I'm just thinking, like, he shows such a reluctance to work on a second team or to play the bench players. And I mean, you can really only see it going one way now. And I mean, maybe a bit of a 1-horse race for the league title now, maybe 2-horse. But I mean, West Ham are behind them. They're not gonna stop. Obviously it was a disappointing result for them last night at Old Trafford, and I mean, it still went to extra time with a beautiful goal by Scott McTominay, I must say. But I'm just thinking, like, where do you go from here if you're Jurgen Klopp?
Well, to be fair to his Liverpool side, I think every Champions League team, every champion from the Premier League, they've always had at least one off season, whether it's following their winning season or a couple of seasons after. I mean, take, for example, Man United. After they won the treble, they started kind of experiencing a tiny bit of a fall off. They started finishing in 3rd place, which is, of course, no means bad, but 3rd place for United at the time was just not acceptable, really. I guess they're just kind of suffering from that, really. It is quite difficult to retain Premier League titles. There is no doubt about that. I mean, I don't even think Pep Guardiola has managed to just yet, as good of a manager as he is for Man City. They won the league title. Oh, never mind, I'm completely wrong. They did retain it 1 year, but I mean, you saw what happened after they'd retained it between the 17-18 and the 18-19 season. Man City were chased all the way to the death by Liverpool that season. It came down to the final day. And the season after that, Liverpool then beat them to it by 18 points. I mean, I'm just kind of seeing the opposite happening here. Liverpool beat them by 18 points last season, and now it feels like it's going to go the opposite way. Man City are currently 10 points clear with a game in hand, to put them 13 points clear. So not even just that. They're 5 points behind United. They're still currently 2 or 3 points behind Leicester. It's kind of starting to.
It's starting to
look
shape,
a lot
really,
like that,
isn't it? And I mean, we expected this after Christmas, but whoever thought that Liverpool would be in 4th place in February? And they were so clearly dominating at the start of the season. But it just shows in this strange season that a run of games can do your team the world of good. I'm just thinking now, is it Man City like 14 games with only 4 goals conceded, something along those lines? Like it's insane, really. And I mean, John Stones and Ruben Diaz have been immense, and it's hard to see Laporte getting back into that Man City side. I just think
you have to feel bad for him, really, to be honest.
Because I thought he was a great signing for Man City, and he's been solid. And look, that's wrong. I mean, it's gonna he will get back into the side, no question, because he's a world-class player in my opinion. But
of course he is, yeah.
I'm just thinking here. You told that about Man City and Man United retaining the title. Okay, Man City did it, and I think with Pep Guardiola, there is a sense of maybe they were burnt out from his intense schedule with them. These things. He's what I'm talking about. This stuff like drinking bans, and obviously there's drinking bans in every club, but like really intense. And it's hard to keep that up for a long time. While on the other hand, Man United were being managed by a man who was showing Rio Ferdinand and Nemanja videos of Phil Jagielka defending. That's out of the David Moyes school of managing. And I mean, it's a big comparison to the Liverpool, the Liverpool.
What surprises, but what surprises me really is he went from doing that with a title-winning Premier League Manchester United team, to suddenly doing the complete opposite with a team that was in the bottom half of the league, about to get relegated until the final match week last year.
But
I mean, he's suddenly come into fifth place this season, on the edge of top four, narrowly getting knocked out by Manchester United in the fifth round of the FA Cup. I mean, he's done, not to exaggerate, but he's done amazing with West Ham this season, if anything.
But I mean, but you have to think like every team has like like all it's going to take is a few losses, and West Ham are going to be back down there, and they've had an easy few run of games, as far as I know.
I mean, it's easy to say that, but
Aston Villa,
every.
But Aston Villa have been there. Southampton have been there. They're not the first sort of mediocre team to be there, and I think they are a very balanced team. And I think the signing of Souček has just been he's been brilliant. But
they've got some top quality players. To be fair,
I just do want to make the point that this is a Liverpool team. This Liverpool team is the same. Obviously, Van Dijk and Gomez, and I mean, who are they really missing Matip? I mean, would they be much better if he was there? You see a title-winning centre back. They have their number one keeper. Their number one cold-footed keeper. They have
first choice wings as well. I mean, not first choice wings, but
they've the front three, and they've Robbo and Trent. I mean, Fabinho and Henderson aren't where they're still there, and Wijnaldum.
They've come in and they've signed 2 new centre backs as well. They can't be using the excuse of we are playing our midfielders as centre backs anymore, because they have 2 centre backs now. Ben Davies and Obak, I think is how you pronounce his name. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah. But I know, and I'll let you give your opinion on it there. I mean, is this a season? Tottenham, Chelsea under Tuchel, I think are doing considerably well. Tottenham are, it's kind of a recurring theme now. It's like it's kind of a recurring theme with Jose. It's kind of like when it happened at Chelsea, it's kind of like he's was doing great and it just kind of fell off. You're like, maybe he isn't. Especially after winning the Champions League with Porto. It happened at Man United. You're thinking, it's happened again, and now you're thinking, wow. What are your thoughts on him?
I mean, as Paul Merson said, Tottenham's football is some of the most horrible to watch in the league, because I don't know what it is with Jose Mourinho's style of play. It worked for the first couple of months of the season, and it's like watching paint dry, watching him lead that Spurs team at the moment. Even with Harry Kane back against West Brom the other day, I mean, 0-0 at half time. I mean, it's West Brom. They're second to last in the table. Sam Allardyce is managing them, and then you've got a manager like Jose Mourinho in charge, and you have to leave it until the last 20 minutes of the second half for the win. I mean, I think just is not right. And I definitely think he's starting to lose that dressing room, because, if I was a player, and my manager came out with comments about my teammates like Dele Alli, the way that he's spoken about him is unacceptable, really. And the fact that, they refused to let him go to PSG over the winter transfer window. I mean, why would I want to play for a manager like that who's going to throw players under the bus? I mean, maybe Jose thinks by doing this it'll make my other players in fear that I'll do the same to them and they'll perform, but it's not doing that. I mean, why would it? Why would you want to perform for a man who's going to act like that? There's no reason or desire to. And their football just becomes incredibly slow to watch. I mean, the only highlights of that team I can really think of are, Son, Kane, and Ndombele. And that's about it, really. I mean, the rest of their players just quite below average, really. I mean, Pierre-Emile, he has been a great signing for them as well, don't get me wrong. I guess it's just the rest of the team. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Their driving force, of course, is Harry Kane. But when they were missing Kane the other day, I mean, it went all wrong. It's like, Kane leads and carries the team. I mean, without him, they're a bit of a lost cause, to be honest. So, what happens if Kane decides to leave?
Well, yeah, but I
Is
mean that's the thing. I mean, Kane comes back and straight away he scores, and because of this, who else scores? None other
Son?
than Heung-Min Son. Exactly. But I mean, look, they they're not the only club completely suffering in London. I'm not talking about Chelsea. I'm of course talking about
The
Arteta.
Gunners.
Arteta ball, Arsenal, since the 0-0 stalemate at the Emirates, a 2-1 against Wolves, a 1-0 against Villa, and football fans across the globe are thinking, there's the Arsenal back. They're back, the Arsenal that we know and love, and they've dropped back into 11th. But if I'm honest, no real way out. I mean, like, could they actually finish in the bottom half this season? Like, they were obviously, look, earlier in the season there were talks about relegation. I mean, it's kind of waffle, really, isn't it? But I mean, they played well for a while and then they just dropped off. It's
Yeah,
amazing. Like, I mean, what's going on with them? Like,
I mean, they were never going to get relegated. To be fair to them, even I'm aware of that. They never were going to get relegated. That was, by all standards, pretty impossible, to be honest. But at the same time, there's this whole talk about, Mikel will improve our football, but where's it coming? I mean, has he really? I mean, I think they're worse off in the table right now than they were last season. It's not really an improvement. I mean, he came in and won the FA Cup with them, but that is a good enough achievement to have, and they'll be happy with that. But would they rather take an FA Cup in a 10th place finish over finishing in the top 4, securing some good money for transfers and the Champions League nights again? Because they only secured the Europa League from their FA Cup win this year. They've been knocked out of it this year. If they don't finish in the top 6, that's nothing for them. They won't even have a chance to play against the Europa League teams. The players' only fitness is going to come from domestic cups and the Premier League. And I mean,
yeah,
they've had flop signings. Willian, as people are saying, he was a free and yet they still got scammed. I'm not quite sure what he's doing at the club. Watching him play is an absolute disaster. I don't think I've ever been so bored watching a player play. And to be fair, Willian used to be an absolutely amazing, he was a magician for Chelsea, but he's coming to the end of his career. He really only came to Arsenal because I don't think he was part of Lampard's plans and, he wanted a taste outside of Chelsea. And it's kind of backfired on him, really. I mean, if he was going to move to a club, I really do think he should have moved to a club outside of Arsenal. I think he should have moved to maybe a club in the Turkish league or something, or even La Liga. It would have been good for him to join one of those clubs. But with where he is right now, I mean, you're playing for Arsenal, man.
he's just soaking up wages at the club, and this Arsenal can't afford to keep doing this, giving all this money away to players. However, last night, a close 1-0 win to Man United in the FA Cup against West Ham, which is a perfect segue into what I'd like to just briefly discuss. You probably haven't paid much attention to this, but Man United, Tampa Bay Buccaneers both have what in common? Are both owned by the Glazer family, the very unpopular Glazer family at Manchester United, but the somewhat unknown, I suppose, and underwhelming, I suppose, over in the NFL. But Tom Brady, at the age of 43, picks up his 7th Super Bowl title for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, assisting who? None other than Rob Gronkowski, who had been convinced to come out of retirement to score for Tampa Bay.
Don't know who these players are. I don't know who these players are, to be honest.
I just like, because it is the Super Bowl, I thought I'd like to just discuss it really quickly. I just thought it was very interesting because, great to see the old duo back again, but not for the New England Patriots, and it's just extraordinary. Tom Brady, he's in his own league. he's in his own league really, and I just think that he's a phenomenal. The fact the mental capacity to keep going
I
for
mean,
his
he's
whole career.
fourth. He's 40 something now, isn't he?
43, yeah, he's 43, and I mean it's amazing, and I just think he will be remembered for a long, long time. However, one of the last things I'd like to discuss with you, Liam, you might not have heard of this, but Lionel Messi has been getting a lot of press lately after his contract. Um,
I saw that.
his contract
Was it
is
500 million over the course of 4 years, wasn't
yeah.
it? Yeah,
This is
130 million a year.
this is like well, there's more clauses. I think it added up to like so. This is just off the top of my head, like around 230, 240 million a year with clauses. Oh man, I mean, this team couldn't get like what was it like three? Couldn't get like 3 point something million for Eric Garcia, and here is one club man, Lionel Messi, soaking up all the. I mean, this club is in serious debt. They can't afford him here. Like it's just astounding. And I thought, obviously the club isn't doing bad now. I mean, they're playing well, and Griezmann is back scoring goals. Letting Luis Suarez is go to Atletico Madrid came back to bite them. What are your thoughts on this whole situation for Barcelona? Like, how are they going to improve? Get out of this hole?
Messi will always be a Barcelona legend, but look, with that wage bill and the way Messi feels about Barcelona and the debt that they're in, I just do think it would be the best if Messi left. And I think I say that because Messi, for his own sake, would be happier. The club wouldn't be in debt anymore, and they could explore other options without having to rely on him anymore. I mean, Messi's getting older now. In 2 years, 3 years from now, they won't be relying on him anymore. And like I said, I think just for all parties, really, it would just be a better idea if he left. And think about it, that's Barcelona saving 1.130 million every year on just him. And fair enough, a lot of their revenue would go down. Messi t-shirts wouldn't be a thing anymore. A lot of Messi only fans would move on to support him at whatever club he goes to next. But at the same time, they'd also be saving 130 million a year. That's more of an opportunity to buy world-class players. I mean, they have Ansu Fati coming in through the ranks now. Pepe Reina. I mean, they've got good players coming through their academy that they can rely on. I mean, Fati is... I wouldn't call him generational, but I mean, the way he was performing before his injury, he was exceptional anyway. It was great to watch. He had amazing link-up play with the rest of the team. I mean, Barcelona, as much as they have great older players, they need to start looking at building upon La Masia because, they've got too many, I guess, over 30 players in that team. Jordi Alba is turning, I think,
Oh my
30
God,
this
yeah,
year.
but he's been absolutely shocking. I don't know if you've been. Oh man, like his defending at the corners has been terrible. There've been talks of him, playing him maybe as a left wing and getting a new left back, but he's been absolutely shocking. The only reason, and that's a very good point you've made actually, because what I was going to say, Messi, as he slows down and can't really he's not really putting in the work rate that maybe is required. He's an unbelievable player, and for me, without question, the best player ever. But I like. Okay, so Tom Brady has given 60 to 100 million to the New England Patriots, and I'm not talking about anything shady or anything, but this is just him taking cuts off contracts and stuff to build up the players, to build up the team around him. So that I suppose he doesn't get his head smacked clean off his shoulders on it. I mean, if you're Tom Brady, it's there's more of an incentive to do that. But Lionel Messi needs players to run around him. I mean, De Jong, I mean Arturo Vidal. Like, I mean, he can't do that. And I really think that if he had, like in a team like Man City, if he had players to be running around the whole time, just doing his work for him, he would flourish in an environment like that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you picture Lionel Messi in I guess, a full strength Manchester City side. I mean, you've got Gundogan, De Bruyne, Bernardo Silva, Messi, Foden,
Phil
Aguero, and then
Foden,
you.
actually, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but Phil Foden, because we will actually have to wrap it up in the next few minutes. But can I please just get your thoughts on Phil Foden? A goal and an assist against Liverpool. And, he's just like, what a player.
As much as I hate admitting it, Man City have a great talent in their hands. Phil Foden. I mean, you don't see youngsters like him very often. I kind of thought his career was going to go pretty downhill after that incident with Mason Greenwood earlier on in the season, but it doesn't seem like that. If anything, it just kind of feels like that was, I guess, Foden's wake-up call, because since then, I don't know what's happened to the young man, but he's amazing to watch. I mean, I watched his goal and, there was no stopping that goal against Alisson. I mean, the way he cut it off the right, dribbled it around, and then just shot it into the back far corner. It was a pleasure to watch, really. And, I'm not going to go as far as calling him generational or godlike, but
Well, why not?
I think it's just because I need
what
to
more
see.
does he have to do? Like, this performance against Liverpool was, I suppose, a coming of age performance for him. And
I guess.
I just think, you don't really see players like him that often. And I suppose it really is. It's really nice to have a player coming out of the academy for Man City, because we really don't see all of the. I can't think off the top of my head the last time that we saw a player. Well, can you think of it? I really can't, because they come very few and far between them. But this guy, I mean, he's gonna have a great career for Man City. And
I mean, look, the only thing that's stopping me from completely saying it right now is just because I think if he can put in one or two more performances like that in this season, then I will 100% say that about him, that he is a generational talent. It's just because I think the Liverpool game was his best performance all season so far. And if he can recreate it again against another top side, because to do that against Liverpool in Anfield is remarkable. I think if he can do that again against another, top six side, if he can do it again against, United or Leicester, if City come back to get revenge on Leicester after the 5-2 this season, if he can come back against a team like that and do the same, then I will have no problem calling him a generational talent, because it's more about the consistency, really. So, like I said, as long as he can provide, one or two more of these performances, then 100% he's a generational talent. And I mean, it's quite scary to think that he's only, I think he's 20, 21. I mean, that's the very start of his career, and he's already playing like this. When he enters his prime, whenever that may be, he might already be in it, and that prime might last for another 10 years, whatever happens. But if he continues to play the way he is, I genuinely can see him becoming, at the end of his career, something like, a Premier League grade.
Well, he will, and
not
I
the
do
greatest,
think,
of course.
because he's fast, he's very quick, he's skillful, and technically he is gifted. Unfortunately, that is all we have time for. Follow along for more analysis as we break down the Six Nations, the Premier League, the FA Cup, and anything on the side. Really, that's
And of
going
course,
on in global sport.
We'll be back, of course, obviously, after this week's Six Nations roundup, and you'll hear the full verdict on England versus Italy, Scotland, Wales, and Ireland v France.
That is all we have time for, unfortunately, today. Thank you for listening to the Sideline Podcast. Thanks, Liam.
Thanks, Anna.